Hey, how you doing? This is Craig Beck, aka the Stop Drinking Expert, and the author of Alcohol Lied to Me, a book that has helped hundreds of thousands of people to quit drinking, and it can help you too. If you want it free, go to the website stopdrinkingexpert.com. Today, let's talk about, can alcohol affect anesthesia? Uh, and this is, I guess, this is about as niche or as niche as you can get, depending on how you want to say it. Uh, but since a friend of mine experienced anesthetic awareness, I think I've had nightmares about this. This has been on my mind ever since. Anesthetic awareness is pretty much everybody's worst nightmare, and that is being awake but paralyzed during surgery. Perhaps you've heard of stories about this in the past of people who were conscious but paralyzed, unable to express the pain, their situation because they were completely paralyzed. I'd heard stories about this before, and I thought it was the stuff of Stephen King. I thought it was just horror story stuff. I didn't think it really happened until a friend of mine, Antonis, it happened to him, and he was a heavy drinker all of his life and had an operation to remove his prostate, um, and was awake during the entire process, but paralyzed, unable to scream, unable to let the surgeons know that he was aware. And he was aware to the point that he could hear their conversation. He could hear every word that they were saying. He could hear the radio playing in the operating theater. He could feel the pain of what was being done to him. And when he told me this story, I mean, literally, that it gave me nightmares. So I've been fascinated by it ever since. And I've mentioned it to a few doctors. I've mentioned it to a few anaesthetists and said, is this possible? And I was expecting a black or white answer, yes or no. And it's not. Some people say, yeah, it's possible, but I've never experienced it. Other people say, no, that can't happen. And there's varying degrees. The general consensus seems to be, yeah, it can happen, but it's rare, and I've never heard of it happening. So I started looking into it about why this would happen. And it would appear that there are two primary reasons why this absolute torturous nightmare could happen to you. One of them is medication. You could be on a medication that interferes with the anesthetic drug, propofol or whatever they're using. I think this risk is very slim because obviously they're going to ask you what medication you're on before they do the surgery. The only exception to that rule is if you're in a car crash and you're wheeled into an emergency room and they start operating to save your life, then they're going to take the risk. But they're also taking a lot of other risks there as well. You won't have fasted for 24 hours before the operation. You will have food in your stomach. There is a chance the food will come up your esophagus and go into your lungs and kill you. So they're taking on a lot of risk by doing that emergency surgery. And they're only doing it because if they don't do it, you're definitely dead. So that's kind of scenario number one. Scenario number two that can cause this is alcohol. And that's terrifying. I never thought of this. In my 20-year career as a heavy drinker, I never once considered that my behavior around this drug could lead me down the darkest avenue possible in life. I never thought I could be paralyzed while someone's cutting into my body because of my glass of Jack Daniels. That never occurred to me. So I've been doing some research on it, and yes, it is possible. And if you think about it, it's not only possible, it's logical, because alcohol is an anesthetic. Not a very good one. Go back a few hundred years and people who had to have limbs removed, all they had was alcohol. So they'd give them, half a bottle of brandy and then begin surgery. That doesn't mean they weren't screaming. That doesn't mean that they had a very slim chance of surviving the operation. But it was all they had, and they knew back then it was an anesthetic. So if you've spent 10 years drinking an anesthetic to the point where your body is now tolerant of it, and it knows how to process it really quickly, then all you've done is you've rendered all of these medical drugs used to render you without consciousness, so you're not aware of someone cutting into your body, ineffective. Genius. Well done. Well done. Why would you drink a substance that opens up the door to everyone's worst nightmare? That's truly terrifying, isn't it? So here's why the problem is compounded, right? If you're a heavy user of alcohol, you become tolerant to the anesthetic effect of the drug. And in doing so, you are now tolerant of other anesthetic drugs, which means just like you need now 5 glasses of whiskey to feel the same as you got from 1 10 years ago, you now need more anesthetic to render you unaware of the operation that you're undergoing. That's great. Knowledge is power. But the problem is, when asked by a doctor, most people lie about their alcohol consumption. So when you're waiting for surgery, and if you're like me, you didn't know that alcohol causes anesthetic awareness during surgery, and a doctor says to you, "How much do you drink?" You'd say, "Oh, I do a couple of glasses of wine a night." And inadvertently, you have just set in motion the wheels for your worst nightmare, because that anesthetist is going to give you the propofol. You're going to close your eyes. Then he's going to give you the paralytic so that your body doesn't move and wriggle during surgery. And you don't want to be wriggling when the surgeon's holding a scalpel near a vital organ. So they give you a paralytic that absolutely freezes your entire body. The anesthetist knows that the amount of anesthetic he's give you is going to last a specific period of time. And before that period of time is up, he's going to give you more if the operation demands it. Or he's more likely going to set a machine which has a syringe on a timer, and it's going to deliver the anesthetic to you as a drip feed at a certain amount per second, per minute, however it does it. What they don't know at this point is that your body is not only resistant to anesthetic because you're tolerant to it, but also your liver has become supercharged and super efficient at processing anesthetic out of your bloodstream. So the anesthetic you've been given is going to work for a shorter period of time and less effectively than it would in a non-drinker. But because you lied to the doctor, because you're embarrassed about your drinking, nobody knows. This is how you open the door to an absolute horror show of an experience. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The other problem here is, even if you are totally honest with the anaesthetists, with the doctors, and you know, they say, "How much do you drink?" You say, "Well, I got to be honest with you, I'm an alcoholic." Even if you tell them that, you're still not out of the woods. Because yes, they're going to compensate by giving you more anesthetic. But the problem with anesthetic is that it has side effects, and it can shut down your respiratory system. It can stop your heart, if given to overdose level. And because they're giving you more than a normal human being should have, you're playing with fire a little bit here. You're getting close to the edges of what is safe. So you're down to the skill of the surgeon and the anesthetist here to get the exact right measurement for you based on your history of resistance to anesthetic without pushing you so far that your body says, game over. And quite a few people who have been honest with the doctors and said, "Look, I'm an alcoholic, you got to give me more," they nearly died. There's quite a few stories out there that I discovered when people came round in the recovery room, the nurses were saying, "Whew, we nearly lost you there. You just got away with it." And that's because they had to give them so much anesthetic that they got close to that borderline, that point where it becomes lethal. So, can alcohol affect anesthesia and increase surgical risk? And the answer is a big fat yes. So listen, whatever your reasons are for being with me today, and why you want to stop drinking, add this onto the list. This is a huge one. I do not want anything in my body that opens up that level of risk. And I know what you're thinking. If you're still down the alcohol rabbit hole, you're probably thinking, well, if I knew I was going to have surgery in 6 months' time, I'd just stop drinking for 6 months. Yeah, but okay, that's great if you get notice. I didn't get any notice. One Sunday afternoon, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, I felt some pain in my stomach, got worse and worse and worse, went to the hospital, told I had appendicitis and needed emergency surgery. If you'd been drinking, quick, I better stop drinking now. It's only 4 hours till surgery. It's not, that plan works as long as you get plenty of notice. If one day you're hit by a car and you end up in surgery as a result of it, all those good intentions are not going to stop the ultimate nightmare from happening to you. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because anything I can find that gives you another reason to stop drinking this poison, I'm going to share it with you. Please share this as far as you can on social media, because I don't think many people know this, and it is truly terrifying. Thanks for watching. See you soon.